and I would really appreciate it if you would stop Rob Taylor from blathering on and on.
Opinions expressed by talk show hosts, callers, or guests on the Rob Taylor Report do not necessarily represent the opinions of the hosting platform, subsidiaries, sponsors, or possibly anyone else on the planet or the known universe. From the tinfoil and lead-lined broadcast bunker on the beautiful southern coast of Oregon, it's the Rob Taylor Report. So strap yourself in. Your weekly political therapy session is about to begin. Ladies and gentlemen, here he is, the nearly famous Rob Taylor.
Hey, Goose County. Hello, Oregon. Hello, America and beyond. I want to thank all of you for tuning in. I've got a really special guest today. He's someone who used to be a regular on my radio show, and I'm glad he's back on the podcast. This is going out live today, and he's joining us from Florida. And I want to get right into this because I don't know how much time we have with this gentleman, and he is very informative on the geopolitics that's happening all across the world right now. And joining me right now is author, filmmaker, political analyst, Trevor Loudon. Trevor, how you doing?
I'm doing great, thanks, Rob. It's always good to see you, sir.
Well, it's always good to see you. I saw you wrote a new book, and it was kind of interesting. You kind of you went right back to talking about this is kind of a local political guy. Canada. You were hitting the Canadian Prime Minister, talking about his connections with China. I thought that was interesting.
No, it's Australian Prime Minister.
I'm sorry, the Australian Prime Minister. And I thought that was very interesting that you were harping on an individual Prime Minister. What, just to go, talk about this book, what led you and to believe this man was compromised? How did you write this book? Where did it come about?
Well, look, I've been following the Australian Communist movement for 20 years. I know it pretty well. And before the last election 4 years ago, a few things came out about this guy. His name's Anthony Albanese. He stands for the Labor Party, which is the sort of equivalent to the Democratic Party in Australia, the left-wing mainstream party, and talked about his minor ties as a young man with the Communist Party, like when he was a university student. And some of the names that were brought up, I thought, no, this isn't minor. So I did about a year's research. I commissioned research on libraries in Australia. This guy is a hardcore communist, not a socialist, not a liberal, not a progressive. He is a full-on communist. And now he's been elected to a second term as Prime Minister for Australia. And already he is dragging, what I warned was he would drag Australia completely into the Chinese orbit. He recently, his Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Defence recently had a meeting with Hegseth, the Secretary of Defence here. And Hegseth was asking him to up Australia's defence spending to help counter China. Mm-hmm. And Anthony Albanese, his boss, wouldn't have a bar of it. No. You don't tell us what to do. I said, this guy hates America. He loves China. He is a communist. And this is why it's of concern to Americans, because, Trump is trying to get Iran out of the way, trying to tidy up the Ukraine war if he possibly can, and he wants to confront China. And he needs Canada, he needs South Korea, he needs Japan, he needs Taiwan and Australia on board with that. Well, the Canadians just elected a globalist Marxist called Mark Carney, and the Australians just elected a communist, and the South Koreans are just undergoing a communist coup right now. And the same thing could happen in the next Taiwanese election. So what I'm saying, this is very important. You know, we've got big military bases in Australia, Pine Gap and others. It's very strategically situated. If you want to confront China, you need Australia on your side. And now we don't have that. And this is a critical thing that I think most Americans just don't have no idea of. It's the geopolitical struggle going on with China. They're moving all through the Pacific. They're compromising New Zealand, compromising Australia. They've got a whole bunch of Pacific islands now. They're looking at starting a military base in Vanuatu. They've just did a big minerals deal with the Cook Islands, which is only 1,000 miles from New Zealand. They are moving big time in that area, and this was a major victory for the communists. The Chinese communists basically called the Chinese people of Australia to vote for this guy, and there was a 30% swing amongst the Chinese Australians towards this guy, and they make up about 2 to 3% of the population. So that's what helped them win. Chinese got them back in.
It's funny that you say that, because that's exactly what's happening with America. Part of the reason that Biden had the open borders was to bring in people who are going to vote Democrat and be lifelong Democrat voters. And it's going to shift the politics in this country. And as you're saying, it obviously has shifted it in Australia, because even at 1 or 2%, that's a considerable amount of people in a country the size of Australia.
Well, that's only the Chinese. Excuse me, sir. 30% of Australians are foreign born now.
Oh, wow.
30%. Now, that's hard to maintain a culture, hard to maintain values when 30% of your voters were born overseas. Now, it doesn't mean they're all bad, but it means many of them are from communist China or third world countries or Islamist countries who don't particularly want to become Australian in the traditional sense of the word. So the same strategy that the Democrats, I mean the communists, use in America to flood the border with illegal immigrants who will then vote Democrat, is the same strategy that was used to elect Mark Carney in Canada. China's huge in Canada, huge influence, and it's now being done in Australia and other countries as well. This is a deliberate strategy. So the left gets in power, they open the borders. Albanese brought about 2 to 3 million new immigrants into the country in the last 3 years. One term of office,
Wow.
10% of the population. He increased the population by nearly 10% in one term of office. That is why he won, because the people will vote for those who bring them in, who give them citizenship, etc.
Yeah.
And so this is the plan, and he's got 3 more years to bring another 3 or 4 million in. The Australians think, well, we'll come back in 3 years. Well, maybe not.
Right.
It's changed so much. If Kamala Harris had won, we'd just about be over now, because she would have legalized 30 million illegals and given them all citizenship and voting rights. How do you ever defeat that? What do you do at that point? You're done.
Right.
That's why Trump is putting so much effort into deporting the illegals, because the survival of our country depends on it. Simple as it'll be a Democrat communist country if he doesn't deport the illegals.
And the reason I kind of wanted to start with this book, because I want to tie it into the subject that I had you on for the show, was that I wanted to talk about the Israel-Iran conflict, because the last time I had you on, we were talking about Syria and how it was a proxy war between Israel and Iran, the US and Russia. I mean, it was the 4 different countries were really using Syria as a way to fight out their own political conflicts. And now it has escalated into actual military conflict between Israel and Iran, which, I don't know, anyone with 2 brain cells kind of saw this was going to happen. You know what I mean? What Hamas, tell us what's really going on and where you see this kind of going, because I think it ties in with China and Australia as well.
Yeah, well, look, and this will be, some people will not agree with me on this, but I think the evil empire never died. Okay, a lot of conservatives think that somehow Russia's our friend and it's a Christian nation. 4% of Christians 4% of Russians go to church. It's got 6 times the abortion rate that America's got, 4 times the divorce rate, and the church is controlled by the KGB, but it's a Christian country. And so look, you got an alliance out there between Russia, China, Iran, Rocket Boy, and other countries, subsidiary countries like now South Africa, Venezuela, Cuba, Nicaragua, etc. And they're going for a shift in the balance of power. Now they've just on the way to taking South Korea, which is huge, taking control of Australia, which is huge, taking now we've got a hardcore leftist in Canada who's going to increase the immigration into Canada. Canada's in deep trouble. And we've got a communist president in Mexico. And most of Latin America is controlled by Russian, Chinese, pro-Russian, pro-Hamas, pro-Hezbollah, pro-Chinese regimes. So the strategy is to pick off our allies all around the world and then surround and conquer the United States. And I can get into that more later. And so Israel is a point of stability in the Middle East. It's a big ally of America. It feeds America so much intelligence. It's a point of, so Russia and China and Iran and Hezbollah and Hamas are all working together to destroy Israel. And so, and of course, Israel's fighting back, and there's different struggles going on in Syria and Lebanon. But the central struggle right now is between Israel and Iran. And already you're hearing stories of senior Iranian leaders are leaving Iran or sending their families to Russia. Iran's basically a Russian client state because they can see that the Iranian people are on the verge of freeing themselves. They might take advantage of this. Once under Obama, once under Biden, there were mass protests in Iran and the mullahs almost fell. But Obama did nothing to help. Biden certainly didn't. But if this carries on, Trump will. And you'll see the end of the mullahs, which is going to put massive pressure on both China and Russia. This could be a dynamo effect to bring down Putin, bring down the CCP. We could see a much happier world in a few years if the Israelis are allowed to finish the job. And the Iranian people are cheering them on, believe me. Right. They want the mullahs destroyed.
Isn't that kind of ironic how back through the last 20, 30 years, they brought in Western civilization type colleges, academia, and a lot of those young kids went to those colleges and now have kind of they're rejecting the Islamic hold on it, or not so much the Islamic hold, but the tyrannical government. Isn't that kind of where that's coming from?
Well, that's right. The Iranians brought these universities to educate their kids to build a strong army, to build a strong economy. But freedom is contagious, and these kids, they get tech savvy. They go onto Western websites. Look, before the Islamic Revolution, which was a Soviet-backed Islamic Revolution of 1979, Iran was the most westernized of all Muslim countries. So they used to call Tehran the Paris of the Middle East. Women walking around in mini skirts, guys hurning around in sports cars and beautiful restaurants. It was a very nice place because Islam is not really native. It's not really accepted in Iran. The Iranians are mainly, there's a lot of Christians, or there were a lot of Jews, a lot of Zoroastrians. They had Shia Islam forced on them by conquest. And it doesn't, and it doesn't sit well with many of the Iranian people. They can't wait to get rid of the mullahs. But Biden wouldn't help them. Obama wouldn't help them because they both wanted to make Iran the dominant power in the region because they both hate Israel so damn much. And Israel, by doing what it's doing, attacking now, taking out the nuclear bases and all this kind of thing, it's going to give the Iranian people a big opening to take out the mullahs. And I cannot wait. I think that'll be the greatest thing that could happen to us.
So why isn't anyone else on mainstream media talking about this? Because all I hear is that we're going to get into World War III. It's nothing but cataclysm. And the Iranians are all against us. They're opposed against us. And once again, I know, and you know history well enough, is that there were a lot of Iranians out there who are supportive of getting out of this regime just as much as anyone else. And I think, like you said, I think we're kind of ripe with allowing Israel to do it. In fact, I think we're holding Israel back from doing what they need to do in many ways.
Yeah, look, just hands off. Let them do what they got to do, because they're doing the work that we would have to do if they didn't. You know, look, these delusional people there's no evidence that Iran's going to make a bomb. There's no evidence that they ever threatened the United States. It was the Iranians that killed 283 Marines in Lebanon in 1983, folks.
Right.
It was the Iranians that killed more Americans in Iraq and Afghanistan and all those than anybody else. They have terror networks all over this country. They've been smuggling drugs into this country for a long time. They openly declare their goal is to destroy the little Satan and the big Satan. And we're the big Satan, according to them. Absolutely, they're on the war path against us. Absolutely, they're enemies of us. They've threatened to nuke Israel into oblivion many times. It's in their constitution to destroy Israel. So this idea that we're going to avoid, look, challenging Iran carries a lot of risks, but not challenging Iran carries a heck of a lot more. You know, when should we have taken on Hitler? In 1939 or 1941? What would have made the war easier?
Oh yeah, going in a lot earlier would have been made a lot easier.
You know, so look, we can stop World War III. There's two things, you know, if because I'll tell you what, if Iran collapses, that's going to be real tough for the Russians, and that's going to make their war effort in Ukraine collapse. It's going to put huge pressure on their regime. It's also going to put a lot of pressure on the Chinese regime. The Chinese have got massive economic problems. Their government almost collapsed during the white paper protests about 3 years ago.
Yep.
And it would have collapsed if we'd had a president who offered a word of encouragement. Well, look, I think this is a very risky time, no matter what you do. We've had Democrats in power for so damn long who have empowered the bad guys. They've got a lot bigger than they should, and dealing with it is a much bigger problem than it should be. But full marks to Bibi Netanyahu, full marks to Israel for doing the job, and let them do it, and the world is going to be a lot safer place. It doesn't mean we might not get a terrorist attacks. We could well do. But they were coming anyway.
Yeah, no matter what.
We've already had teams over here work casing people to assassinate over here. We know they have terror cells here. They're waiting. Well, now those orders may never come because most of their bosses are dead.
And that's a good thing, which once again, that might lead to the coup that we're hoping for in Iran. But the thing is if we could get that coup, if we could push this over, if we allow Israel to cut off the head of the beast and the military in the government in Iran, we're really putting more nails in the coffin for Russia, because they get a good portion of their oil, from what I understand, from Iran.
Yep.
And this would be a huge damage to them, because I imagine once if Israel takes over, it's going to change that deal right off take it right off the table.
Yeah, look, if I was in Ukraine right now, I'd be cheering Israel on here, because you know that's where the Shahid drones come from too. You know, what if you had a good government in Iran that sold their Shahid drones to Ukraine instead? Putin would be absolutely done. And look, the Russian economy is hanging on by a thread. The only way Putin can win the Ukraine war is by persuading Western leaders, by scaring Western leaders through nuclear saber rattling to give up, to abandon Ukraine. Because the way it stands right now, Ukraine is going to win this. It's going to grind them to a halt. And the only way we lose this now is cowardice, isolationism, and just not being in the fight. We got two countries standing up to the West right now, and both are doing pretty darn well. And especially in Israel, they need to be allowed to finish this job and bring down that regime. Bibi fought for it. Said, we are not your enemies, Iranian people.
Right.
We want to get rid of your oppressors. Help us.
Right. And I think that's kind of what they should have really reflected on and pushed. That's the message they should have pushed going into the North Bank with Hamas as well. Is we don't want to kill Palestinians. We don't want to kill people in the West Bank. We don't want to kill people in Iran. But your leaders are a death cult that. And this is true. They're a death cult that wants to set the whole entire West on fire. And the key or the gate to the West in their eyes is Israel.
Yeah, look, absolutely. Look, the Iranian regime, the leaders believe in the 12th Imam. It's a version of Shia Islam. They believe their way to heaven is by bringing chaos to the world. Worldwide war brings the return of the 12th Imam closer. And that's sort of like their end time, prophecy. They want war. So why would you let them get nuclear weapons when they continually threaten to use them?
Right.
Israel's had nukes for 30 years, 200 of them. I haven't even seen them threaten anybody with them. But Iran's been threatening people before they even got them.
Right.
And I'll tell you what, Israel prevented both Iraq and Syria getting atomic weapons too. Imagine.
Oh, that's true.
Imagine Saddam Hussein with nukes.
Right. And that would be the real concern, is that Iran then again would be the lead dealer of these nukes in the Middle East, and then everyone surrounding Israel is going to have a nuclear weapon because it works in the benefit of Iran.
Yeah.
I mean, for the start, until they get rid of Israel, and then they would fight each other.
Nuke each other, yeah. Look, this is like giving a bunch of gang members nukes,
Yeah.
or giving gang members machine guns. They're gonna take out the cops, then they're gonna take out each other. And so Iran is a rogue regime. It's never faced a real election. And this is what I say. Russia's not a legitimate regime. They don't have real elections. China's not a real regime, a legitimate regime. Neither is Iran, and neither is North Korea or Cuba. You would talk about a regime. Oh, we shouldn't be going for regime change. Why the hell not? Wouldn't regime change in Nazi Germany in 1939 been a bloody good thing?
Yeah, and especially right now, I think because you're talking regime change, and people are going, "Oh, that could never happen in China." Well, it's happened within our lifetime in certain extent, and so we keeping the pressure on, Trump putting those tariffs on, keeping the pressure on economically. And then you have Israel bombing Iran, which is really the fuel for Russia and for China. We're putting pressure on the two countries that most people don't realize, because this is not being reported in the news, are already economically dilapidated. China is having a hard time, and I forget which province they've got. They have many different warehouses and businesses just shutting down. They have entire cities that they built and are empty because of the economic development flaws that they had in their policies. There are some really bad things going on in China economically that I don't think most Americans realize, and now is the exact time for us to be putting pressure on. And I think that's what's missed when they're talking about Trump and his policies.
Yeah, look, I agree. Look, we're in a very precarious position in the world today, because when we could have stopped the Chinese government, Chinese communists coming to power, when we could have, we allowed them into the World Trade Organization. We built them from a fourth world country that couldn't even threaten Vietnam or the Philippines, now to a challenge to ourselves. We built this,
Right.
and we send our industry over there. We send our military pensions over there, and we've built this. We make billions of dollars a year trading with China, and then spend trillions of dollars defending ourselves from what we built. Well, here's my vision of the world. Putin is overturned. Russia probably breaks up to 2 or 3 countries. Some of them are going to be better. Iran, the mullahs are thrown out. You have a good pro-Western government coming to power in Iran, and the Iranian people will love America if we help them do that. They'll love Israel, and you have a collapse of the Communist Party of China, and you have a collapse of North Korea. We can finish Reagan's vision of ending the evil empire, so our kids don't have to deal with this crap. That we have the economic levers and a strong enough military to bring all of those powers down with us not firing a darn shot. Let the Iranian people do it. Let the Ukrainians do it. Let the Israelis do it. Let the Chinese people do it in their own country. All those regimes come crashing down. Rocket Boy ain't going to last long, I'll tell you that. So we're at a pivot point. If we back off now, if we say to Israel, back off, back off, back off, if we betray Ukraine, if we betray Taiwan, our kids are going to live in a horrible, horrible world, a really bad world. But if we stay the course right now with some courage, we could have some major victories for liberty here.
And I've been saying that for years, that if America has leashed Israel too many times. There have been so many times when I think Israel could have gone in and done this years ago and finished it off. And yet here's the U.S. putting a leash on them, telling them no, because there are, it's not beneficial to certain groups, and which is weird because we have a lot of warmongers out there who love war. You know what I mean? Anywhere that we can sell missiles, we can sell armaments, we're up to it. But this is something that I think has been a real detriment to Israel, the Middle East, and that's U.S. involvement and leashing and pulling back and restricting them from doing what they need. So I hope they really don't do that this time. I hope
I don't think Bibi's going to have a bar of it. Like Winston Churchill used to say, the Americans always do the right thing in the end after they've tried everything else. So hopefully they won't have to try any more options right now. Look, the Israelis are very competent. They're very disciplined. They're very focused. They want to save their country, and they're good allies to us. And they will. And look, Iran could become a very good friend to us as well. Saudi Arabia, even as well. Look, the Saudis hate. They're as terrified of Iran as Israel is. As soon as if Iran finished off Israel, they'd turn their attention on Saudi Arabia pretty darn quick.
Egypt and Saudi Arabia, I think both would be in the eyes of Iran, and that's just because they're a war nation, they're a death cult.
Yeah,
and it's just part of their religion.
Those countries are Sunni, and there's all sorts of factors that go into that.
So we talked about the proxy war and then how this is, and I talked about Syria, the extent of that proxy war, now how we've escalated that between Iran and Israel. But what's going on in America right now with the immigration, starting off from 2020, many of us believe this. I still believe it's continuing. A friend of mine, Kevin Starrett, who runs Oregon Firearms Federation, sent me, when I sent out my notice about today's show, he agreed that there's definitely a proxy war going on, but he also said something else, that there's a color revolution occurring right now in the United States. And I agree in part that that's happening, very much so.
Yeah, well, if you look at all those riots that started in Los Angeles last week, I could tell you exactly who did it. It's the Freedom Road Socialist Organization, a pro-Chinese communist group. They're the same people that initiated the George Floyd riots in 2020, the same people that have had major riots outside Republican Party conventions since 2012, including where petrol bombs were thrown in Minnesota back in 2008. This is a completely Chinese communist operation. There is also help, obviously, I believe, from Iran, help from Latin American forces like the Venezuelans and the Cubans, but a lot of Islamic Hamas, Hezbollah type stuff going on as well. But yeah, look, that's why I'm glad that Trump took resolute action, sent the National Guard and federalized the National Guard, sent in the Marines, etc. Shut it down for now. But look, this is still bubbling away. They intend to make this a full-on chaos in American streets this year, and I believe we are going to see terrorist attacks in America and insurrectionary incidents in America. And the only question is, how tough's Trump going to be with dealing with it? Because if he's tough enough, we can turn it back. But if these blue state governors are allowed to do what they want to do, we're going to have major grief here all through the summer.
We have to make sure that because the response in 2020 was a little too light, and what they're doing now is already they're starting to cut back. The video is much different. The video, you saw them burning down police stations, and now you actually see them coming out of the federal buildings and protecting the federal buildings. It's a lot of a different response here in Portland, and even throughout the state of Oregon. Even though we're still very much a leftist state, the environment here feels a lot different, and the leftists know this. We get about 200 of them here in Coos Bay. And remember, Coos Bay went 60% for Trump, and we still get about 200 of them every week down at the boardwalk here in Coos Bay, which is the biggest city in the county. And the difference between them and what was coming out in 2020 is the age demographics. These are older people, they're more mature people, and we don't see the violence that's happening or did happen in 2020 yet. I believe, like you said, that we're going to have paid protesters, we're going to have instigators, we're going to have hard right Antifa kids from academia sent in here. That's all eventually going to happen. I believe it's going to happen because they're going to see that as long as they remain peaceful, we respect what they're doing, but it's not going to give them what they want. And that's going to be a real problem, I think, going down.
They want to trigger violence.
Mm-hmm.
Then there'll be a response. And and that's what they're after. And then they can say, well, look, these are a bunch of fascists. And then when law enforcement are labeled as fascists, anything goes then, because you can do anything you like to fascists.
That's right.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, look, this is, I seriously think, and plus we have, so you're right, that the left hasn't got the energy it had last time, a lot of older people, etc. But what I think we're going to see, the violence is going to come from, the Chinese nationals who've infiltrated across the border, for instance. It could be up to 100,000 of them. We don't know. I think they're going to get involved. We've got Hamas, we've got Hezbollah here. There's a great video going around circulated by Canary Mission, and they're a campus group that monitors the Islamic radicals, and they've got all these little vignettes of these radicals saying, well, this is an Islamic radical, this is the time, this is a serious time, a lot of us may not be here next year. Clearly implying they will be dead. Why would they be dead? Because they got killed doing terrorist activities. That's a clear implication there. And now, so I expect this to happen, and I hope to God I'm the biggest idiot in America, and it doesn't. But look, Trump's doing the only thing he could do right now, take a very hard line response. Yeah. That's the only thing you can do with this, because we give them 1 inch and they're just going to take a mile. They're going to go crazy.
Absolutely. Yeah, we can't give them any a quarter whatsoever at this point. We have to be hard line on them, and that's just the way I think they're dealing with it. But I can see Hamas, I can see terrorists from the Middle East being used, but you get military age Chinese men committing violence at these rallies. I think you're going to see a complete turn in public opinion towards Trump towards being hard line like you've never seen before. Because once you see the Chinese, and especially if you find a Chinese that's connected to the Communist Party involved with this, it's going to change. And I that's why I think they're going to push forward with the what I call the Middle East cells that they have here. You're going to see more of them being used, I think.
Well, I think that's right, but I think that's also a benefit from taking down Iran, because that's who's given the orders here.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's going to disrupt their chain of command. So you're going to have these terrorists around sitting here. Who do I take my orders from? All the people I took my orders from are dead or now living in Moscow. What maybe I just better sit here keeping on driving Uber for a while.
Yeah.
No?
That's true too. That's very true too. And a lot of them become Americanized. They get over here and realize, well, hell, it really wasn't as bad as we thought.
Well, look, this is the thing, you know. If you stand up for America, you know, nobody's going to defect to the losing side. If they're terrorists over here and we're clearly weak, they're going to stay with their bosses. But if we're strong, and especially if we offer an amnesty, I think the president should offer an amnesty to all traitors and terrorists on our soil. You either leave the country or you come in and confess everything, and you'll get some kind of amnesty. You get, you know, if you provide enough service to the United States, we can turn some of these people. So, but you're not going to do that by being weak. Nobody defects to the losing side. But
right.
We're really the winning side. Some people are going to think, do I really want to destroy this wonderful country and go back and live in misery in Iran? Do I really want my kids to live under the mullahs for the next 30 years? Maybe I will help the Americans. Maybe. And if you start doing it, a whole lot could, and this whole thing collapses. I think if America is resolute and tough and stands up for itself, just like Israel does, I think a lot of people will be swayed by that, and some of our enemies will become our friends.
I think that's a good idea. I think the president should offer that.
We're weak. We're done.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing that, and even Trump has mentioned that, how even foreign leaders have said, you know, we're hot again. You know what I mean? That we were really cold. No one wanted anything to do with us, and I wouldn't either. If I was a foreign entity, I certainly wouldn't want to have anything to do with the Biden administration. Now you see someone come in who's competent, who's strong, who's not going to take crap. You want to be part of that, and that's why I think overall it's not only going to benefit America going forward, because I believe we're also creating new generations of conservatives, libertarian type politicians and people. But I also think that in other countries, they're going to start seeing how wrong it is to continue down this path of communism and socialism. That it's, you know, I don't know how you could live in Argentina and Venezuela and say, oh gosh, this is a great idea. At a certain point, there has to be a breaking point for those types of regimes. And, you know, it always devolves into civil war, and nobody wants to live like that. You can't live with that type of insecurities.
Well, you know, like in the 1980s, I've talked to a lot of Russians who lived in Russia or ex-communists and whatever. Did you know who the Russian people admired most in the 1980s? Their hero on the world stage was Ronald Reagan, because he was standing up to their oppressors. He was standing with them, not the Communist Party. And this is the big mistake we make with Iran. Don't upset the Iranian people. We're not upsetting the Iranian people. The Iranian people love Trump. They want to get rid of the mullahs as much as he does.
Yeah.
Why would they love someone who keeps their oppressors in power? Same with North Korea, same with China, same with Russia. You know, there's a lot of people there who want to be free too. So they appreciate somebody who will stand up to their oppressors. And just, you know, this is very old-fashioned of me, but it's the moral thing to do. It's the right thing to do. And I think we're going to need God's help to get out of the mess we're in. And I think God favors moral, strong, courageous people. Do you not? Do you not think America's been a God-favored nation for a very long time. And it's not because Americans are cowards and lazy and weak. It's because Americans have been strong and brave.
Well, and that's what, and we've missed this in the last, I don't know how many years of educating many generations, but that was what our founders talked about. To have these types of rights, you have to have a moral nation. And that's something I hear all the time. I hear kids who can talk about their rights, no matter whether they're real or imagined, all the time. And I always ask them, well, what about your rights? What about your responsibility, and what about respect? Because it seems like responsibility and respect, which you have to have those things to have your rights. You know what I mean? You have to have the responsibility to want to care for yourself, to care for your family, to be able to defend yourself. That takes responsibility. And if you don't have that moral compass to guide you, then it doesn't matter how many rights you have. And that's what's failing, or the new generation is not learning.
Freedom in the world with zero responsibility is a recipe
Yeah.
for disaster. We see that with many young people. They get a right for this and right for that. Liberty isn't the same as freedom. Freedom is you do what you want. Liberty is the freedom to do what is right, to do what is responsible. You can only keep your freedom if you exercise it responsibly, if you grow as a person, as you use that freedom productively. And that's the beauty of the American system. Productive people who use their freedom productively were rewarded. People who use their freedom irresponsibly tended to end up poor or in jail.
Right.
And now it's the signal's been reversed a lot of the times,
Yeah.
And as the socialism grew, it ended up that the worst people got elevated. But look, I think we're turning a corner here. I think the world is a pretty scary place right now. But faith and courage, resolution. Most people on the planet share our values. Most people have some sense of God. They love their families. They want to live productive lives. They want to make some money, build a house, educate their kids. Those are common values. Most people aren't Muslim extremists who want to bring hellfire to earth. They're not communists who want to dominate the planet. And if we stand up for those people, they will overthrow the tyrants in their own countries with a bit of encouragement. And I think that moral courage is what we've been lacking the last few years. And Reagan showed some of it and it made a lot of progress. But I think Trump can, if he's smart, if he does it right, he can push the needle way further than Reagan did.
Absolutely.
I think the world is ripe for it.
I think the world is right for it too. I think, and maybe I'm just having a wave of optimism right now. But yeah, it's just kind of hard today. To be optimistic. There's so much going on.
Faith comes in. You always have faith. We can win. Right is right. God is in heaven. We can do the right thing. Goodness will win. We have to have that faith, because we've been thrown so much cynicism for so many years, so much black propaganda in our media. But when I was a kid, we always used to say, but the goodies will always win in the end, And we believed back in the 60s, but in the 70s and 80s, everybody got fed so much cynicism in the media and the movies. That kind of optimism faded away. But I think we need to restore that.
Well, let me ask you a deeper theological question. And I was always taught this, that the religion of Judaism, Islam, and Christian all came from the same God, the God of Abraham. Correct? Isn't that the way that we're always taught?
All called the Abrahamic faiths, because they all go back to some Abraham figures in all of them. Jesus was considered a prophet in Islam. They all come from the same tradition, yes.
But what happened with Islam? How did Islam go down? I mean, was it Muhammad? You know what I mean? Was it why did they go down such a religion of war now? You know what I mean? Their religious book is a book of war. Why can they come and derive from the same God as Abraham, and yet here we have
Well, Satan used to be an angel in heaven, did he not? But he rebelled.
true,
Well,
true.
You think about it, I think a lot of this comes down to Cain and Abel. Okay, you got two sons, one
Mhm.
Abel is a God-fearing, loyal, dedicated, hard-working, good young man. Not a perfect man, but a good man. His brother Cain is resentful and jealous that God favors Abel. Why doesn't he favor me? Well, it's just unfair. And he ends up killing his brother. And we've been fighting that Cain and Abel dichotomy ever since. The American Revolution was an Abel revolution. It was all about empowering good people. The French Revolution was a Cain revolution. It was about jealousy, resentment, executions, the guillotine. And I think Islam has been taken over largely by the Cain spirit. It went in the Cain direction. Christianity is about forgiveness, about honor, about loyalty and faith. Islam tends to focus much more on vengeance and conquest and bitterness. I will avenge you, Well, that's that's not how a real Christian talks. Christians have committed a few crimes over the years, in the name of Christianity. But the basic religion is about goodness. It's about forgiveness. It's about, responsibility. It is not about vengeance, especially the New Testament. You don't hear anything about vengeance in the New Testament. You might in the Old, but that is more where Islam comes out of the Old Testament stuff, where that was commonplace. So you can't draw massive generalities, but I think really Islam is more dominated by the Cain spirit. Christianity is more the Abel spirit. And so, which is why, when's the last time somebody knocked on your door and says, look, how would you like to come down to the mosque and learn about Allah? Most of the world became Islam because of conquest. The sword, very little proselytization. And some of Christianity became that way too, but Christianity sent out missionaries to Ireland and Scandinavia and and all over the place. It was, you can't overgeneralize too much, but I would say that is, in my opinion, Islam is dominated by the Cain spirit. Christianity is an Abel faith, a faith of goodness and that seeks God. It doesn't seek to. It seeks to empower people to love God, not to destroy people who don't.
Well, and I think your analogy of Christians sending out apostles with an open hand instead of warriors with a closed fist kind of fits exactly what you're talking about. And we've all made mistakes. All religions have made mistakes in the name of God, but those are mistakes and we all try to get over it. But some religions, they thrive on it and they thrive on the war.
Yeah, well, look, what Islam too is more than religion. It's a political system.
Right.
You can go to church all for years in America and never even hear about politics. But Islam is, look, Muslims believe the whole world belongs to Allah. And so if you're living in America and you're not a Muslim, you're a trespasser.
Right.
You're on Allah's territory. And so it's his duty to, by any means necessary, and by lying, by stealing, by killing, whatever it takes, it's a devout Muslim's duty to recover all of the stolen lands back for Allah. And so, right there, you're setting up a conflict, aren't you? When I came to America, I had to swear that I'd never been involved in any communist or Nazi group that sought to overthrow or undermine the US Constitution. Well, if you are a Sharia-compliant Muslim and you come to America, by definition, you're seeking to overthrow or undermine the Constitution by just being who you are. Doesn't mean every Muslim that comes here is like that, but ultimately, you're
Right.
a typical Muslim. You believe Allah has rights over all, and if people refuse to bend to Allah, they get what's coming to them. They're rebels.
And that's the kind of the justification the president was using to stop immigrants coming from certain countries. And I think it's very justified, because if the home country that you're coming from is preaching the destruction of the country anywhere that you go, or the religion or the ideology of the country or place that you're going, we need to isolate those people. I mean, you know what I mean? Immediately.
Absolutely. You don't invite the mafia into your community, do you?
No.
Like, if Muslims see, I don't get all upset about when I see a Hindu in my community. I don't get upset about seeing a Buddhist or a Mormon or whatever, because I know they're not going to blow me up.
Right.
They're not, and they are free to practice their faith as they see fit. But when you belong to the Muslim faith and you're a dedicated Muslim, you have a very strong political element with that. And I have a problem with your politics. Just like I have a problem with the communist politics. My next door neighbor's a communist, and if he's a nice person and he helps me lets me borrow his lawnmower, and he doesn't try and make the whole world communist, I got no problem with the guy.
Right.
That's when he gets political, when he tries to destroy my constitution, when he wants to take away my freedom. That's when it gets problematic. And Islam has this history of getting very political when they get a certain number of people in the community, and they tend to take over those communities and lord it over everyone else. That has been a worldwide pattern. We see it in parts of Europe, and I don't want to see it here. I think President Trump's very right to limit that in any way he can.
And I agree with you. Yeah, and a good example is, like you said, you wouldn't invite the mafia to your neighborhood. So why would you do this? Trevor, I always like to promote your books because they're just great, and I want to let everyone know that you can get your books. You have a website for this. Can you see the screen?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is your new one, Comrade Prime Minister. I love that cover. I love that. It's that's a nice cover.
Well, I'm promoting that. A lot of people are getting it, but look, if you bring up the one below it, if you can, Stealth, Kamala Harris's Communist Roots. I put that out before the election, but it's even more relevant now, because it's not just about Kamala, it's about the whole Chinese infiltration of the Democratic Party, starting with Jesse Jackson in the 80s, how they gave us Obama, they gave us Stacey Abrams in Georgia and Andrew Gillum, and they gave us Kamala Harris, and they're still going. They're involved in vote fraud. They've got election integrity, election registration groups all around the country. This is about the ongoing Chinese takeover of the Democratic Party and the infiltration of America. The head of the Christian anti-communist crowd, David Noble, called that the book of the century. That's what he called it, not the year, decade, the century.
Nice.
He's written several books himself. So I think every American who hasn't read that should read it, because that whole thing's gone forward, and she's not gone. She'll come back in some shape or form.
Oh yeah. She'll, whether it's behind the scenes or not, she's not going anywhere. And it's because they're political critters. They know they can make their money and butter their bread by, continuing to push this nonsense.
Look, she's been a revolutionary since birth. That's all she knows. Most people become communists in college. She became a communist in the cradle. Both of her parents were hardcore communists. Hardcore.
That's a good price too. $20 for that. That's a good price on that.
Yeah, it's good. Well, I sold tons before the election. I'm still selling tons now. But that's the best book I've ever done. But the Stealth book the Australian book is also great. It'll show you how they take over what you think of as a friendly country.
These are the ones I read. The first two of these, the House Un-Americans. You got a part 3. You got a 6-part series here.
Yeah.
And
Part 5 will have Oregon in it.
part 5 has Oregon in it.
Yeah, it's coming out soon.
Okay. All right. I can't wait. I can't wait. I imagine I'll know some of the senators but this one here, the security risk senators, I don't think people realize in both parties, we have senators who have some very questionable links and ties to the Communist Party, especially here in Oregon, because Oregon has the council, the Chinese council. It's called the Oregon China Council on Trade, and Oregon is the number one trading partner of all the states in the U.S. Oregon's the number one trading partner with China, and that cannot be by accident.
No, it's Oregon's been deeply targeted, but both Wyden and who's the other guy?
Merkley.
Both of them have got huge Marxist ties.
Yes.
Both of them. Neither of them, if they applied for a government job to work in the Department of Agriculture or drive a school bus, both of them would not pass a background check.
That's not surprising to me whatsoever. I don't know how they got it. Well, I think it's partly because of the vote by mail. I'm sorry, I put up the wrong here. I wanted to put up your website, trevorloudon.com. Anyone who wants to go and find out more about what this man is doing, incredible stuff. I've been following. Gosh, Trevor, I've been following you now for 30 years. It's been a long damn time.
Wow, okay. Since I was 10.
Since you were 10, I've been following.
Good for you.
That's the Biden America there. So any great adventures you going on these days?
No, well, I'm mainly staying at home, writing and doing podcasts and that kind of thing. That's really where I do a little bit of touring. I'm coming out to Oregon later on in the year, probably about September. Bit of stuff in California, but mainly just trying to get books written. I'm actually doing one on New Zealand right now too. I've written all these books about America and Australia, but my home country has been left an orphan. So that's what I'm doing. I'm working pretty hard and just try to get all my projects finished. Just get everything done.
Good.
We're looking at such a critical time. You start to think about what kind of country do you want to leave, to your kids and your grandchildren, that sort of thing. And that's what motivates me most right now.
Yeah. For me, it's the same thing. I've got a grandkid now, and every effort that I'm doing is to try to change the direction of what's happening, especially in this state of Oregon. We went left. You do know that the whole country went right on November 5th, and Oregon took a left.
Yeah. I think there might be a few shenanigans going on out there, but
I'm working on. There's this project we've got. In fact, that was the mistake I made. I put up endvbm.com, and that's where we've got an initiative because we can run initiatives in Oregon, and we're trying to end the vote by mail here in Oregon. And to Wednesday, Judicial Watch is coming. Tom Fitton is going to be here in Eugene because they've got a lawsuit against the state, especially the Secretary of State, to clean the voter rolls because we've got the dirtiest voter rolls in the entire country.
Yeah, well, that's great. Yeah, if you can do that, that's going to be fantastic. And I've got a few thoughts about what we can do to clean things up, but I'm going to have to head away in a moment. I've got another show I've got to go to pretty soon.
Okay.
Yeah, but a big shout out to all my friends in Oregon. I've got tons out there, and I want to, especially you, Bob, Mr. Southerton, if you're listening to this. But I'll be out there later on this year, and I love coming to the state. It reminds me more of New Zealand than any other state. Really.
You're going to be at the rally around the flag event, aren't you?
I think that's what it is going to be. Yeah.
The rally around. I will see you in September. I'll bring some of our friends up there for you. Okay.
Yep.
Oh.
So great talking to you as usual. No doubt we'll talk before then anyway, but good to see you, sir. And big shout out to Oregon.
All right. Thank you, Trevor. You have a wonderful day. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye. And that that was Trevor Loudon. I just love having him on the show because I don't know diddly about geopolitics other than what I can derive from all of the news media that I can absorb that you get on from the airstreams out there. You just get, you're getting it from cable, you're getting it from broadcast news, you get it on the radio, from print, and we got to figure out what's right, what's wrong. We don't know. We don't know what's happening out there. Samantha Frost says, and the feds are getting involved with that lawsuit. Yay, yay. The feds are getting involved with that lawsuit. That's a good thing. And I probably won't be out there Wednesday because the court, the trial is happening in court at 10 a.m., which means I would have to leave here probably about 7, which means I'd have to get up about 5:35. I think I'm going to pass, Samantha. I think I'm going to pass on being there. I think I'll wait because from what I understand, this is just a procedural trial. They're just going to be talking about when they're actually going to have the real court session. So I think I'll be passing that. But for those of you who are going to be in the area, it would definitely be interesting. And I'm serious. This is, stealth. I've read several. The Enemies from Within. That's how I got tuned into Trevor Loudon. As The Enemies Within was a really great book. It's an even better movie. You can still catch the documentary on YouTube. The Enemies Within. But this book here that he's selling, it's only $20 on his website. That's trevorloudon.com. And I believe he will sign that for you as well. He will sign that and send that out to you. But that's a good one about Kamala Harris. And I can't wait until number 5 of the Enemies Within state legislatures, because I'll be interested in what's going on here in Oregon. I bet you a few names that we would recognize are going to be in that book. That's going to be a very, very entertaining book. Just my thought on that. And Samantha says, you will be missed. Yes, it's on a motion to dismiss. Sorry that I missed the flag wave after the one in Lincoln City. I would have arrived in Coos after 5:30. Yeah, see, we're just, we got a lot of little towns, but there's a lot of space between these little towns. And so I get it, Samantha. I get it. We can't be everywhere, but we do a lot. Tonight, I'm going to a wind turbine meeting. I don't know if you guys are keeping up with that, but first, let me put this up there. Let me share this. This is that flag wave that's happening on Wednesday, June 18th. And this is if you want to gather in front of the Lane County Courthouse on 8th Street. They're going to be meeting there about 9:20 before the 10 o'clock court hearing. And the court hearing is it's a motion to dismiss the case. And hopefully it won't get dismissed because that's what they usually do. They just dismiss it and don't hear any of the evidence, which is a bunch of bullshit. We know it's a bunch of bullshit. So if you want to join this is happening in Eugene. This ought to be really cool. And like I said, if I didn't have to get real early and travel for 3 hours to get there, 3 hours to get back for 20 minutes in a courtroom, I'll pass. But I think it's a good thing for anyone who might be there or be in the area. I recommend it. And there's the New America. Yes, New America. We have a new flag, the Mexican flag. And that's the new Ubers that are going around, the F-ICE Uber. Yes, you got to have an F-ICE Uber in your community because this is the New America. New America. And if you're wondering who's funding a lot of this, funding for key immigration nonprofits, that'll give you an example of some of the groups that are being funded here and how much money they're getting. A lot of money. A lot of these nonprofits are getting a lot of money, and I'm sick of it because a lot of it is our tax dollars, and well, it just shouldn't be so. Let's see here if I can show this for you real quick. This is what I was talking about. The Land Department, the Department of Land Conservation and Development is holding a coastal community meeting. We're going to have a coastal community meeting to talk about the wind turbines that have been canceled by the president. Why? We don't know why, because they're insane. They're insane in the legislature. But this is happening tonight at 5:30 to 7:30. And of course, I'm going to be there to yell at these damn bureaucrats. And I feel sorry for the bureaucrats because the bureaucrats don't want to be there. They're being forced to be there because the legislature passed a bill last year, HB 4080, that's continuing these meetings for this roadmap. Now, I'm looking for an exit ramp. I think we need to get on the exit ramp and get off the roadmap. The roadmap that was originally set up by the House Bill 3375 that was passed in 23, I believe it was. And then in 24, they passed House Bill 4080, which continued this nonsense. And this is why we're going through this. And you can blame your legislators. You can blame the Republicans and the Democrats for this because some of the Republicans voted for this nonsense, and here we go. So this is happening tonight at the North Bend Community Center at 5:30. Show up and tell them you don't want these damn wind turbines off the coast of Southern Oregon. It's just ridiculous that we're even talking about it, but we're talking about it. Why? Because the legislature is full of a bunch of jackasses, and what can I tell you? We need to stop that. Let's see. What else do I need to let you know about tomorrow? Tomorrow, 9:30 in the morning. That's when the meeting starts. The BOC meeting in the Owen Buildings, 201 9th Adams Street in Coquille, 9:30 a.m. June 17th. I'm not sure anything exciting was really on the agenda, but you need to find out what's going on, folks. I would suggest watching this meeting or attending this meeting to find out what your county commissioners are doing. And of course, the city of Coos Bay is also having a meeting tomorrow at 6 o'clock. So you can go to the, what you can do is you can go to the county meeting, and then tomorrow night you can go to the Coos Bay City Council meeting, because that's what you want to do on a fun Tuesday night, right? Right. Yeah. And so that's what's going on here in Oregon. And before I get out of here, they did play a game of Where's 3H Tree Service. We had a winner. And so, that's why we're not playing now. Let me remove this and add this to the stage. For all your tree service needs, I would highly recommend 3H Tree Service at 541-294-1800. That's right, at 541-294-1800. They can come to your house, take out those trees. You got a liability tree. We call them Antifa trees. You know why we call them Antifa trees? Well, they're a liability. At any moment, they can catch on fire. They're disease ridden. They got bugs. They're infested. They're causing problems. Well, they're Antifa trees, for lack of a better term. But you want to get rid of those trees, especially those Antifa trees, you need to call 3H Tree Service. Matt Holman and the guys will come out there. They will remove those trees with surgical precision, I tell you. And they'll clean up the mess and leave you a beautiful view in return. Isn't that nice? That's nice. And they don't charge a whole lot of money. Yeah, they charge a lot less than the other tree removal services. And on Mondays, we play Where's 3H Tree Service. So if you find 3H Tree Service on Monday and the game's going on, you can win an extra $50 and see people like Jody here. He won $50 for Matt, and people like Nancy, she won $50 for Matt. So I highly recommend, for all your tree service needs, 3H Tree Service. My other sponsor is Tom and Gigs. Tim and Shanna over at Tom and Gigs, they do a heck of a job. Tim is one Class A mechanic, and he has a lot of Class A mechanics working for him. So if you need struts, you need shocks, you need mufflers, you need to have your tires aligned, you need to have your car looked over or inspected because you're going on a trip this summer, they can take care of that. And they can take care of the inspection for free at Tom and Gigs. They'll look over your car and let you know if you can actually take it out on the traveling, out on the trip. It's a good thing. And there's a lot of things happening at Tom and Gigs, especially this summer. If you got kids, this is really cool. They're the largest RC remote controlled car dealers in Oregon. They can fix the big cars and they can sell you the little cars, and these little, and they're not so little. See how big they are? Those RC cars are really cool. And this is just some of the cars that they have here. They have car accessories, and they can take care of all of those needs. Anything you need for any of those little RC cars, they can take care of that. Look, there's another one that's really cool. That's the Bigfoot truck there. And they also have planes, they have helicopters, and they have tannerite. You know, you need a little tannerite. Well, they got them over at Tom and Gigs. And remember, you must be 18 years or older, and they will ask you for an ID. That's right, because that's what they do. So you better have an ID if you want to get some of that tannerite. And speaking of adult things, one of my other sponsors is Herbal Choices. For all your herbal needs, Herbal Choices, best dispensaries in the county. Hands down, I love these folks. They're really good people. If you're looking for like Wednesdays, they have Wild Wednesday, where their Wild brand gummies are on sale. And I was telling you last week, and this is no kidding. I mean, you know, you got back aches, you got knee aches. My problem is hips. I've got all of the above, but especially the hips. You get those gummies, and you know, it's not, those edibles aren't like when, you know, we were kids. You remember we would get those cookies and it would have leafy green pot in it, and we'd call that an edible, and it really didn't do much. Well, the edibles today, they got it down to a science, and they got these little gummies that they sell. Like I said, on Wednesday, it's Wild Wednesday. They've got them at, I think it's 25% off. It's a really good sale. But the actual gummies, you get the ones with the CBDs in them, they're incredible for loosening up your back, your stiff knees. Yeah, and it alleviates some of the pain that you have in your joints and stuff, you know. And I'm not talking about the joints you smoke. I'm talking about the joints that connect one piece of your body to another piece of your body. Well, I tell you what, those gummies, they've done a really good job for me. I really enjoy them. And not just because, well, they get you high. And remember, never drive on this stuff. Never drive. Never get drunk and drive. Never get inebriated and drive. Always be clean and sober, and find someone who hasn't been drinking or getting inebriated for your drivers. That's right. You want safe drivers. But you can find out more about Herbal Choices and their products at the herbalchoices.com website. And you must be 21 years or older. 21, isn't that strange? You can be 18 and buy tannerite, but you have to be 21 to buy pot. In my mind, that's just a little strange. I'm not sure. Why is it okay? We will allow an 18-year-old to go out and buy something that can be explosive, but yet we won't let them buy alcohol or cannabis. I'm not sure. Is that, I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe I'm just looking at that. It seems to me like if you're old enough to own explosive, if you're old enough to serve your country, die in a foreign land, and shed your blood for someone else's freedoms and rights, I think you should be old enough to smoke pot or drink booze. But that's just my opinion. Maybe I shouldn't be throwing politics in this commercial, but that's what this is, a commercial for Herbal Choices. Very good stuff. Herbal Choices. And they do have 5 locations, one in Charleston, one in Coos Bay, one in Bandon, one in Reedsport, and of course, one in North Bend. Oregon Firearms Federation, and we didn't get to see they had the meeting today for the gun bill, and that was let's see, I forget which bill that was. That was House Bill. I'm looking it up right now. Rules. Oh, heck, which House bill was it? Oh, I can't find out. It was for, let's see. I cannot find the House bill. Oh, it's SB 243. SB 243. I don't know if they're having, oh, nope, the meeting is in recess. I thought we would be able to catch the meeting. But Oregon Firearms Federation, they're fighting for your Second Amendment rights. Kevin Starrett has been doing this for over 30 years. He's been very successful. And I would imagine that we're going to have a lot more challenges to our gun rights after this legislative session. So if you have some extra money and you want to help in the fight to protect our rights to own firearms, our rights to self-defense, I would highly recommend making a donation to Oregon Firearms Federation. You can find out more at OregonFirearms.com. .org. They're not my sponsors, but I like to let people know that you can go hone in your firearm skills at the Bandit Gun Club at banditgunclub.org. Or if you have a rifle, you can go sight in your telescope at the Taiga Sports Park. They have a 100-yard range, and you can find out more at taigasportspark.org. And there's this group right here is on Facebook, the Coos County Neighborhood Watch. I like to promote them because they're doing a lot of good work out there. And if you're someone who's tired of the crime in the area, become a member of Coos County Neighborhood Watch. If you're a whiny ass bitch or you're a Karen and you're a bleeding heart liberal, don't bother joining this group. Do yourself a favor. Don't join this group if you're a little whiny bitch. If you're going to be one of those, oh, look, there's poor homeless people. Oh, poor guy. He's only OD'd 5 times. Can't we just give him some money and a sandwich? That's all he needs is a little bit of money and a sandwich, and he'll be all right. No, you bleeding hearts, you stay the hell away from Coos County Neighborhood Watch. These are people who are tired of the crime. They're fed up with the nonsense, and they're demanding somebody take accountability. Well, they're taking accountability and taking the responsibility of being out there and being on patrol themselves. I do it. I'll go out on patrol every now and then. Don't have any specific time or day that I do it. I just do it when I have the time to go out and do it. And that's kind of like when crime happens. Crime doesn't have a schedule. Crime doesn't have a schedule at all. So you shouldn't have to worry about having a schedule with the Coos County Neighborhood Watch. You just go out there and you monitor your neighborhood. And all we do is we let the cops know when there are bad people doing bad things. And that's a good thing for our county. And this is the Coos County Neighborhood Watch on Facebook page. Very good people. And I don't know if you saw the last Coos County Citizen Council podcast. That's Chris Castleman's podcast. They've been trying to get a bunch of homeless bums, a bunch of criminals, a bunch of trespassers off this private property. And they've shown some video on this. They've also been keeping up with what's going on Lakeside. A lot of good stuff. If you want to catch that podcast, go to Coos County Citizen Council, and you can see all the former podcasts on that page. And so that's pretty much all that's going on in and out around the neighborhood. And I really want to thank Trevor Loudon so much for coming on. What a great guy. And I want to thank all of you for tuning in. Mom, Dad, Samantha, thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it. Very, very good stuff that you keep informing us about. And keep up the fight, folks. There's a fight out there. There's a fight. This battle. And we're going to keep it going. We're going to keep continuing it. And I've got another special guest coming on next week. I haven't confirmed that guest, but as soon as I do, you'll see it on my website or on my Facebook page at Rob Taylor Reports. And you can find me anywhere there's a platform, YouTube, Rumble, X, Rob Taylor Report, at Rob Taylor Report, or you can go to my website at robtaylorreport.com. That's right, robtaylorreport.com. And hey, join up. You can sign up for the newsletter. I send out a weekly newsletter to let you know what's going on in the show or any important meetings that might be happening in and around the county. So you may want to go there and find out what's happening by going to the Rob Taylor Report. Sign up for my newsletter. And I'll see you all next week. We're going to have a Friday night rant. I don't know what the hell we're going to be ranting about. We're going to be ranting about something, so check that out. 8 o'clock this Monday, and I'll be back here at 3 p.m. 8 o'clock Friday is when we're going to have the rant, and I'll be back here at 3 o'clock Monday. And until then, you know what I always say, carry on, Coos County. Carry on.